Hello, everybody. Here we are back again. I'm only just back. I was in bed all day yesterday and slept for like 24 hours just about. So you might hear me sniffling and coughing. I'll try and mute if it gets too bad for a minute, but I feel so much better. But I'm Louise Edington, the Cosmic Owl of Cosmic Owl Astrology, here with Kathy again for some post-political, post-election astrology. I have a membership or two memberships actually. You can find them both on my membership, but the Spiral Weave is just $7 a month and has one Ask Me Almost Anything call a month, and you have a form to put in if you can't be live, and you get the recording. And the Nest has weekly calls and is more of a learning environment and growing people's practices. And I also do consultations, Kathy.
I'm Kathy Beal. My website is empowermentunlimited.net, where I have weekly, new, full moon, and monthly forecasts. They are also on my YouTube channel, which is Professional Aquarian. I also have a Patreon with very quick, as in 45 to 60-second daily forecasts and a lot of additional information, including a long timeline that you can get as a standalone purchase without having to join my Patreon, about how the period between now and the beginning of September is preparing us for something that's going to lock into place next February. So there we go.
Cool. Awesome. Well, today we've got a couple of charts to look at, maybe three. We'll see how the time goes. But even though I was in bed for the last 24 hours, Cassie has got her usual roundup. Thankfully, Cassie, thankfully, one of us was well enough to do it. So I'll let her just dive in.
There's so much news that's breaking that I just like to encourage you to look at things that have happened this week through the lens of uh, Venus meeting Saturn in Pisces, so some kind of governmental limitation or something about values that affect a lot of people. I have a story or two with that, with Mercury, with revelations coming up that may have something to do with, the military, more about that coming up, or fighting or going against people. And then this weekend's Mars-Pluto opposition. All of these are tying things back to as far back as, excuse me, early November. And big power plays going on right now. So we had said last week, I had specifically said that the Mercury-Pluto sextile revelation potential could bring Signalgate back into the news because that first came to light when Mercury first sextile Pluto, and lo and behold, there's more information about what the Secretary of Defense is doing with Signal, including having chats with war plans, attack plans, in chats with people who do not have Defense Department clearances, and his wife, one of them, and also that he installed Signal onto his computer in the Department of Defense to get around the fact that he can't bring his phone in there. So we'll look more at that. Um, we called it the Venus Saturn. Okay, there's a huge pushback that's ongoing. There are now coming up on 200 lawsuits against this administration, and courts are saying no, no, no to all kinds of executive orders, throwing people out of work, refusing DEI, refusing grants to schools that still have DEI policies. All of these are being overturned. Ongoing fights about disappearing people in foreign prisons who have not had a court hearing of any type. Harvard is suing. Harvard is pushing back on First Amendment grounds and others. There's a litigation tracker. I put a link in mine that has all of the litigation going on. Outside of specifically this administration, there have been numerous things going on in North Carolina to fight against uh, the election, and there is a state Supreme Court candidate who has been fighting the Democratic candidate who won, and that's all been stopped in her favor. We also have the Election Truth Alliance getting louder and louder and louder about its information that it has about election interference. Um, Other things to know about with this are, hold on, Venus conjunct Saturn in Pisces affecting many, many people. The FDA has paused inspecting milk. The FDA, or rather, it's sending food safety back to the states. They've got things involving milk. They have paused chicken. Um, Being a vegan is sounding more and more like the healthy thing to do at this point. Do not,
Well,
so no political arguing with me over this one, okay? Because people are going to go, what? But you know, food safety, huge issue. Um,
yeah.
and in Venus, in the Mars Pluto opposition mode, Trump has instructed the Department of Justice, which, by the way, is not what a president is supposed to do. DOJ is supposed to be separate. Has instructed the Department of Justice to go after Democratic fundraising platforms like Act Blue. There's going to be a lot of fighting over that. And this morning, right before we started recording, the FBI um, arrested a state judge in Wisconsin, claiming that she was interfering with a deportation matter by not telling by telling agents who had come into a state courthouse where some undocumented workers were. So that's going to have some um, that will have legs. That will have legs. So
And I do want to mention Ukraine as well because this deal that our beloved supposed leader is trying to broker just gives Ukraine nothing. It gives Putin everything. Zelensky will say no to it, but this is just like he's just trying to rip everything apart. But anyway, here we go. Yeah. So
all right, so a few things to watch for in the next week. The Mars-Pluto opposition is exact on Saturday. This is the god of war opposing the god of death and rebirth. This is the third time that this opposition has happened. The first one was November 3rd, second one was January 5th, and now this weekend. So there will be war-related information. The whole thing with Ukraine is part of it. I would expect more to come out about the last election. It would fit with this very, very much. There is a new moon in Taurus on Sunday, on the 27th. And Taurus has to do with money, the economy, the arts, food, all of these issues, things that have been in the news in your own life, the impact on you. So a fresh start or a new start or a new phase in those. Next week, really, really notice the energy level ramping, ramping, ramping up because on the 30th, Venus moves into Aries. Now, on the 30th of March, Neptune moved into Aries. Cory Booker took to the Senate floor for 25 plus hours. Then Mercury moved into Aries and met with Neptune, and Letitia James issued a blistering speech against what the administration is up to. So now Venus is going to move into Aries, and on May 2nd, she meets up with Neptune. So next week, we're going to see the populace at large get even more feisty, willing to stand up and fight. The divine feminine on the rise, probably an inspirational female figure or four coming up. Now, interestingly, there's no such thing as coincidence department. Shortly after Venus and Neptune meet, Kamala Harris is scheduled to make a major fundraising appearance. This begins what we will now track as we go on, her emergence, which is what May is all about. So put a pin in that. And then on the 6th, this whole uprising of energy and power and feistiness, and I'm going to fight for stuff with Venus moving into Aries and then meeting Neptune. Then we get focused and a real fearlessness and like, you're not going to do this to me vibe hits
mm,
with Venus then sextiling Pluto in Aquarius.
mm. And Mercury starts treading new ground after the retrograde early tomorrow morning, as we
Okay.
record this on the Friday as usual. So, and combined with the new moon, everything's kind of like on the up. It's like, woo,
Mhm.
yes, yeah,
Yeah, and
um,
one thing you
great
can look
run.
at this new moon as, oh, I'm sorry, I overtalked you,
Yeah,
is
no, it's fine.
that we're now seeing, okay, here are what the conditions are. How are we going to deal
Mm,
with our resources? Are you going to plant a garden? A lot of people are doing that. Are you looking for local
mm,
sources of food? Uh, this is not a trivial question with what the FDA is doing. So this is
mm,
adapting your own resources, your own experience of the mundane and of
mm.
practical matters to the now changing conditions.
Yeah, definitely. So we're going to start looking at the lovely Pete Hegseth. And I just want to say, this Mars Pluto opposition that Cassie mentioned is, oh no, that's on the other one. But, there is all these things are kind of affecting them all. So we'll start with him. We'll start with Hegseth. So you tell me what you see with Hegseth, because I just think he's kind of going to be with Jupiter definitely emerging for moving up towards things in this chart and coming up to square this. But look at this, all the convergence of energy in Pisces has been on his Pisces moon, and this is really kind of bringing out all this information, revealing all this information about him, really, I think. Do you?
Yeah, well, it's in the house of communication. It's in one of the
Yeah,
houses
exactly.
that would fit using signal. And
Mm,
with Jupiter moving through his seventh house of allies and open enemies, more and more
mm,
information coming out about who he's been chatting with. That fits with this.
mm.
Also, what
I'm
this
taking
business
out a couple of things here because I
going
realize I've
back
left
to
in too many things.
going back
Yeah.
to what Louise started out with his moon in Pisces in the house of communication. Currently, uh, Saturn and the nodes and have been there, and Venus is there right now too. Neptune was there
Hmm.
until the end of March. So there's been this accentuation, boundlessness. I would be very surprised. Well, this would not give clear thinking, for one thing. There might be a bit of
No.
megalomania and not being able to see where boundaries are. If there
Mm,
is, in fact, any kind of substance abuse going on, this would make it just over the top, over the top.
mm. And I actually would like to mention this centaur. I left Pholus in for a reason because Pholus is activated in both charts that we're going to look at, and Pholus often kind of reveals it's a bit Pandora's boxy, this centaur, and it's kind of about small things that trigger big unravelings. It's kind of got this um you know um domino effect, or whatever you want to call it. Once one thing's out the box, more comes out. And of course Neptune has been hovering over Pholus, or close to, and as Cassie mentioned with the transits, Venus is going to go over it soon, and Mercury was there before. So all of this is revealing all this stuff about him and communications in Signal Gate, I think. And I suspect when Venus comes in and connects with Neptune, that there may be more.
Oh, I expect. And then when is this going to stop? Well, Saturn in the sky is at 27 Pisces, closing in on his moon, and it hits it. It
Mm,
sits there May 2nd through 13th. So that is imminent. Right about when Venus is sitting on his or heading for his fullest, Saturn's on his
Hmm.
moon. Now, Saturn on the moon. Okay, this could be authority saying stop it. This could be him having a really, really bad time. This could be repercussions and ramifications for what
Hmm.
has been going on. It certainly is not continuing it
Yeah.
at all.
So there's Venus exactly on, so people can see. Yep, Saturn almost exact. That's not a good day for him, shall we say?
No, and notice that Uranus in the sixth house, Uranus in Taurus at 26 degrees Taurus, in his sixth house of daily habits, daily routine,
Mm,
co-workers. That Uranus is in, it's really tightly with the node. There's something zapping
mm,
out that we need to know about. That's
hmm.
his instability, his unpredictability, his unreliability is
Yeah.
not going to go away.
Oh, and Merc on that day. This is May the 3rd, by the way. If those for those who can't see the date, Mercury will also be on his natal Pallas Athena in his fourth house, and opposing his Pluto. That's you know they may have to let him go at that point. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
So
that would make sense. And the
yeah.
woes only continue because
Mm,
the eclipses that we have in September set his chart off. So there will continue to be
mm,
repercussions for this man, perhaps even legal ones, because the eclipses are going to go across the house of communication and the
mm.
ninth house of legal matters and foreign affairs.
Yeah, yeah. It's and there's a few other things we could go on and on, but he's got a lot coming up really, and I think when we first looked at him, we noted his tie-in with the US jocks. His ascendant is
Mhm.
just 1 degree away from the Sibley chart. He's definitely kind of got connections, but he's got too many kind of issues. This guy, he's not I don't know. He just kind of does not think clearly. Let's put it that way. So
Right. Right. The moon in
yeah.
Pisces. Yeah. So there's a bit about there's an illusion that and a glamour, which
Uh-huh.
would fit being a TV host, does not fit being
Yeah.
a dealing with defense matters.
And look at the conjunction of the moon and Mars on that day too. Whew. Anyway, yes. So shall we go and look at
Right.
another person I dislike immensely? So I'd love to start with just this one, if that's okay,
Please
with
do.
his Pholus, because well, the Mars Pluto opposition is on his ascendant
Can we
descendant this
can we
weekend.
interject right
Yeah.
here? This is an
Hmm.
uncertain birth time. This is the time that
Oh.
uh, Astro Data Bank has, and they give it a
Mm,
C rating, which means
mm.
unreliability. The reliability is in question, but it works for what we're talking about. Okay,
It
sorry.
it really does. No, no, no. I meant to do that anyway. But either way, Pluto is transiting. So to go back to these centaurs, sometimes they really add a piece to the story. So Pholus is transiting almost exactly over his Pholus and is stationing to go retrograde in early May. So we'll be going back over again. And again, to go back to what I said about Hegseth, this is the small thing that triggers the big unraveling and bringing the shadow to the surface is Pluto as well. But also because it's on the Mars Pluto opposition, like even more clearly for him, I always also think of the Mars Pluto opposition as the out damn spot. To quote my Shakespeare training when I was a kid,
Mm,
at opposition, because Mars likes to cut things out, right? And Pluto excavates the shadow. And so yes, I think sometimes it's to do with the military and things, but also I kind of think looking at this opposition, even if we go back to the first one being 2 days before the election, as Cassie mentioned in the news roundup, the election interference and things are coming back up to the surface again as closer we get to this opposition. So in many ways, this out damn spot um, kind of opposition is rising up. But for him particularly, I find it quite astounding that he's Pholus is in Aquarius, and his words this week that caused outrage were about autism. And yes, they've walked it back, apparently. I missed that because I was asleep for 24 hours. But that is not going, that Pandora's box that he's unleashed is not going back. The things that he said in his talk about that.
To
So
clarify,
that,
what they walked back was the notion of a national registry for autism.
yeah.
He did not
Yeah.
walk back his alarming
Oh,
comments about it.
oh, he said that, oh, yeah, and there are some severely autistic people who will need help for all their lives, but most people on the spectrum live lives, and contribute. And the spectrum is wide, and his comments were just awful. And he said he could find a cause by September. Scientists have been working on finding out about autism for decades and decades, and most agree that it's a genetic disorder, if it's a disorder at all, but they call it a disorder. But also, maybe there are some environmental factors. But the trouble with, and I'm sorry, this is my opinion, I have autistic people in my life I love. There may be some environmental factors that exacerbate some things, but mostly it's a neurological, genetic disorder or difference, I prefer to say. And he makes up his own science. I'm sorry, and that's why did I go there? Because Aquarius to me is very much associated with the nervous system and with all those systems that connect within the body. And here he is making up his own science, and it's associated with science too. So, anyway, there's my little rant about
There's
that.
another aspect probable to what might be coming out of Pandora's box for him. And he has all kinds of very unusual, I don't even know how to say this. There are all kinds of sex scandals in his past, things
Oh,
involving
yeah.
death of a wife, and then
Hmm.
his fascination with roadkill and some things that
He's,
cousins have testified to seeing him do with live mice in a blender. There are many. So this is going to be, to put it really crudely, the gift that keeps on giving. I suspect that
mm,
many, many aspects of very unsavory things are going to come flying out fairly soon, involving
mm,
this individual.
yeah. Yeah,
And actually,
or
very
resurface, yeah. Because
re
some of
and
us have been aware of them for a long time, and a lot of people are not. So, yeah,
uh,
yeah.
so let's pay attention to you started with this Mars Pluto opposition. So
Mm,
Mars is at 3 degrees Leo, and it is moving into a square to his natal Saturn in the fourth. This could be the
yeah.
curse of being a Kennedy, something to do with family, maybe a death that occurred in the family. Anyway, that Mars Saturn square will be exact really soon, May 7th and 8th. And then as we get further
Mm,
into May, it's going to square his natal Mars, which is May 22nd through 24th. So just know that he is going to be in the news for personal reasons in May, not just for whatever edicts he's attempting to issue. And they may have to do with
And
all kinds of family matters.
yeah, yeah. And also to go to that Mars square Mars, as Kathy mentioned, by that time Pluto will have stationed retrograde and be starting to get even closer to another exact conjunction with where I started. And Mars natally will be heading toward us by transit, sorry, will be heading towards his natal Pluto as well. So, oh, I think there's a lot more to come out because
Whole
people
bunch more.
are enraged by what this is. Yeah. So he's just put himself under greater scrutiny, shall we say, so, to reveal the shadows. So, shall we have a quick look at somebody who I admire a lot more quickly before
Same
we,
here.
yeah.
Aquarius, sun, moon, Leo, full moon, baby. Yay, yay, yay. Team Aquarius,
Oh,
bring them
here
on.
he is. Yes, Aquarius. So, the Mars Pluto opposition go by transit is affecting him as well, but kind of less exactly, but it's definitely activating his own Mars opposition to his Venus and Sun in the third and ninth of truth and justice and speaking and all and voice, and again to call it the out damn spot kind of opposition. I kind of think he's going to make some very strong statements, I suspect, about this supposed deal that's been being brokered on his behalf.
Pause button here. For those of you who are just listening, we're talking about Volodymyr Zelenskyy, President
Oh
Zelenskyy.
yes, sorry
Right.
for
Okay.
those. Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes. I forgot people. Some people just listen. Yeah. And so the deal that's being brokered, even Boris Johnson, the ex-prime minister of Great Britain, has come out against it and said, this is terrible. This is just gives Putin everything he wants and gives him the opportunity to move his his troops into those occupied lands, which will spark a third invasion further into Europe when he feels that Europe is sleeping, and he's right. That's what Putin does. I'm very passionate about it because I have a friend in Kiev who is very politically aware and she knows all these things. But I think Zelensky is going to stand strong with that Mars Pluto opposition. Jupiter is about to cross his ascendant and he's coming up to a Jupiter return because Jupiter's moving really fast now. He's going to say no. No,
Before
no,
you
no, no.
before you move Jupiter off, may I point out a
Mm,
couple of things from this chart
yeah.
before you do that? Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
First,
Yeah, I
I
was
want
just
to
getting
point out.
it ready.
I want to point out to everyone. He has Mars at 0 degrees Leo, and it is trining Neptune at 0 Aries. This is the
Oh, yes.
spiritual warrior. And then next week, Venus is going to cross there too. He is not giving in. He's got, it's, if you want to say God on his side, you might. There's a life force like, nope, 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 not going to do it. And Pallas Athena at 20 Aquarius is on his midheaven. Um, he has advisors. There are people internationally who are behind this for him. What else would you say about Pallas being there, Louise? Anything?
Well, she's strategy as well, and in Aquarius, she's very associated with pattern. Um, um, well, she's associated with that anyway, like seeing the bigger patterns, the bigger picture. I always think she's a bit like Alice in Wonderland. She can kind of see, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of makes some massive speech statement saying this is what will happen if this deal is forced through. Yeah.
Well, and it's in a trine to Jupiter in Gemini, which is the sign of
It
communication.
is.
So,
Yeah.
has advisors for one thing. This tells me he has advisors, and there are other people who are going to fight with and for him. um, especially once
Hmm.
Venus enters. I think NATO, I mean, it's in the 11th house of group associations. I think the EU
Yeah.
and NATO are definitely behind him.
Hmm. I think so. So we could even just go to, well, let me move on that first. When he has his Jupiter return, you see it's very close because Jupiter's moving fast now. The moon joins. So all this will be building up. Right before that, we have, the Venus moving into Aries and hitting Neptune. I think what Kathy said about his Mars trine Neptune now, the unbroken flow aspect is bringing out this real spiritual warrior kind of
Hmm.
energy, and also his moon Mars will be on his moon just before that too. I think he's gonna be more fired up than ever um, to stand up for his country
Hmm.
in a big way.
Absolutely. And
Yeah,
with Saturn, when
yeah.
Saturn moves into Aries on the 24th of May, just a couple of days before he has his Jupiter return, it will be in that trine to his Mars. I'm sorry, he's the
Hmm.
leader for these times for this country and possibly
He
for
really
Europe.
is. Yes, I know. Oh, it's yeah. And if you don't know what the deal offers, you could go to my Facebook personal page, Louise Edington, and I posted a whole kind of list of it as addressed by Boris Johnson, and I have to laugh because this is probably the first time I've ever agreed with Boris Johnson. So, but
There we have it.
so yeah, there we have it. But in summation, even though I've been a bit laid up over the last couple of days, there's definitely a shift. There's definitely a shift. More and more people are turning. More and more people are outraged by what's happening in this world. None of it's perfect yet. It's a bit disparate, but I still think we are on the outs of what this administration are trying to do, shall we say. What
And
about you, Kathy?
they keep getting batted back and batted back and batted back.
Yeah,
And just
they do.
keep speaking up and notice what ignites in you and in your communities next week.
Hmm.
When Venus moves into Aries,
Definitely.
boy, out
Oh yes, I
of my
know,
way.
and oh, and even then, when also kind of in mid-May, when Venus passes the degree she stationed retrograde at as well, it's even going to increase even more. This is just going to keep building this kind of fight back. And just thinking back to Zelensky's chart, I'm not even going to share it again, but he has his Mars at 0 Leo, as we saw, and his Moon at 17 Leo. Now his Moon was not transited, but his own Mars. You have to remember he was affected by that retrograde Mars going back over his own Mars. So he's had a third Mars return, which kind of the retrograde probably kind of you know retrograded some of his impact for a while. Not anymore, I
Not
would
anymore.
say.
Nope.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
All right. So till next week, and I hope not to have to mute to blow my nose next week. So just do your self care, take care of yourselves, feel this shift. I feel it already. So
Bye.
bye.